Hello and welcome to the second vlog from the Police and Crime Commissioner's office. Last week we talked about a bunch of stuff and we've had questions in from around Devon and Cornwall since then, so we're going to address some of those. But first of all, Alison Hernandez here, the Police and Crime Commissioner for Devon, Cornwall and the Isles of Scilly, I'm going to ask her some questions about the activity that's been going on with our office and our partners. So, hello Alison.
Hello.
It's been a really busy time for police the last few days, especially regarding enforcement over Easter bank holiday. In total, police in Devon and Cornwall spoke to 5,500 people. There were 4,000 targeted high visibility patrols, 960 people were given verbal warnings, and 169 people were issued with £60 fines. That puts the force in the top 5, I think, of forces around the country, 43 forces in England and Wales. Were they being heavy-handed with all that activity?
Well, absolutely not. And I think anybody who's worked alongside any of our officers in Devon and Cornwall or worked with them knows the approach has always been engagement and education before they ever move to enforcement. And I think one of the really interesting things, as we are the force that was the birth of neighbourhood policing, we know proactive engagement is what reduces crime and what works. And I'll be really frank, I mean, a lot of people don't remember or know that we beat London for domestic tourists. So we get 45 million overnight stays a year in Devon and Cornwall. London for domestic tourists get 26 million. Now you sort of kind of think why we might need to make sure that we're out on the streets ensuring that we're being really engaging on the COVID response. So no, I don't think heavy-handed, and I'm surprised it's not more, and I think our community would be surprised that it's not more, and it just goes to show that people have been abiding by the rules, and we've been playing our part, I think, as a key partner in this community to keep the spread of COVID to a minimum in the southwest.
Okay, and for those people who perhaps commit more serious crimes, the criminal justice system is still very much alive, isn't it? And we've been playing a part through getting virtual courts up and running. Yeah,
I mean, one of my biggest frustrations right at the beginning of the crisis, and it wasn't on everybody's radar because it wasn't the top priority, obviously, was actually ensuring that criminal justice processes continued. You know, the biggest worry I'd have is that people thought they could get away with things because the courts were shutting, that there wasn't actually going to be no real proper arrests because of the fact that there was no court process to go through. So the fact that we've worked really hard and the Ministry of Justice have enabled us as to be sort of the first force outside of the London area really to get this up and running because of our track record in trialling it about 3 years ago, we're really pleased. So it means basically that all the partners involved in running a court, particularly a remand court, when somebody has just been arrested and the decision about whether they need to be remanded into prison or they can go out on bail or released under investigation in some way, shape or form, all happens virtually. So they don't have to get together in a room. They still get really good defence support because their defence lawyer is available, but it's all done virtually. So really excited about that, and I'm hoping, fingers crossed, I think it's next week, or we're actually turning it on, I think, this week, but let's hope it runs smoothly.
And mental health, there are some concerns about, you know, businesses are facing an incredibly tough time at the moment. There's a lot of uncertainty about when the lockdown might end. It's having an impact on people's mental health, but there is help available.
I'm really worried about this area actually, because as a former small business owner myself, you have the feast and famine, and it's the self-employed that are actually the most affected because there was some difficulties about whether they were actually going to get any help from government. So I can understand the sort of anxiety that's in the community around this, and I really would suggest that people reach out. It is absolutely okay to talk about your feelings, and especially as a business person, you're often trying to be very confident, very assertive to, you know, make sure that your clients want to work with you. It's absolutely okay to reach out, and we'll make sure there's lots of links on the website so that people can do that.
Okay, so that web address has got links for all sorts of people. It's got victim care details, and there'll be some mental health charities and support available on there, and that's Devon and Cornwall -pcc.gov.uk. Road safety, you would expect there to be a significant improvement in road safety. There were some numbers out last week which showed a 73% decrease in traffic around the UK, Those are levels not seen since 1955 in this country, but actually we haven't seen that happen, have we?
No, and bearing in mind all the partners across Devon and Cornwall, we were at the forefront really in the country of agreeing, you know, we wanted 0 deaths on our roads, and we set this interim milestone of 50% reduction in deaths by 2030, and even that's considered ambitious. And we're talking, on average, we get around sort of between sort of 58, 63, that number of people dying on our roads every year. And I think for us at the moment, we really did think there was going to be a drop, and it doesn't seem to have happened. So I am speaking with the Chief Constable and seeing what targeted enforcement we can do to remind people. I've had lots of complaints about people speeding on roads that you can't normally speed on because of the level of traffic. So we're not talking about necessarily the M5 or the big A38. We're talking about potentially as well roads where they're not normally able to drive fast, and they're probably a little bit excited about the fact that they can at the moment, but we want to make sure people are really thinking about their safety at this time. So a piece of work needs to be done, I think, in terms of roads policing at the moment.
Another subject that we've been working on in our office, because you own the police estate, that's right, isn't it? And Barnstable Police Station, there's a potential problem with the roof there. So relocation, and that's still going on. Yeah,
so there was what was it called? Planking issues. Aerated concrete planking issues, that's it. And I think the thing about that is that the reason why it became quite critical in North Devon is because it's affected by the weather. So cold weather makes these planks worse, warm weather makes these planks worse, and wet weather makes these planks worse. So basically, it doesn't matter what's going on, they're continuing to deteriorate. So we needed to get the staff out of that building, and we found a great location that they are really actually excited about going into. So that is all been going ahead, and we're actually still moving very fast pace with that to get those staff relocated within the next, well, what are we now, April? Well, I think we were aiming for some time in June to try and do it, so we're still on track at the moment.
Right, okay, well that takes us on to the question session. We've got 10 questions, so quick fire if you can. We've had this one, several councillors and some members of the public have asked us why there's still appears to be a long wait time for 101 to be answered. That's the police non-emergency number.
So when we've looked into this, what's been quite interesting is every time there's a government announcement at 5 p.m. on a particular day, so can I just suggest people don't call at 5 p.m. on a particular day, they often ring the police for advice about what does that mean for me. So there's been spikes in calls linked to government guidance when it's come out. But the latest data that I've looked at, 85% of calls in 101 are getting answered within 10 minutes. And I would strongly suggest that people use online facilities if they can at dc.police.uk because you can live web chat with somebody in that control room. They can do about 5 web chats at one time. So for efficiency and effectiveness, it's really helpful. I would really suggest people only call if they're emotionally upset, distressed, and need to speak to someone. Otherwise, I really would recommend everybody do it online anyway. But like I said, 85% of calls are getting answered within 10 minutes at the moment.
Okay, so we've had a question from the clerk at Maker and Rain Parish Council. What are police doing about the many holiday makers and second homeowners now staying on the Rain Peninsula? And I suppose, more widely in the southwest.
Well, I actually had a phone call from one of the parish councillors as well, the chairman of that, Chris Wilson, and he spoke to me specifically about his concern because they're all down on holiday, that they were using the beaches in a really broadly using the beaches. They were packed. King Sands and Cold Sands. So I think in terms of that, we had lots of discussions about what local authorities are able to do. And I think during this time, and I just want to thank all the councils and all the councillors that have pushed for their council to do things like close car parks at beauty spots and make it just more difficult and uncomfortable and more clear that it is not available for general use as it normally is. So anyone who can still walk to that place can still use it, or somebody who could cycle to that place can still use it, but it's not about taking your car there and having a day out. Huge thank you to the councils for pushing it. But I suppose the clear message is once these people are here, if they're here, we won't be asking them to go back. That is generally not the rule because you're only starting to keep moving people around the country, and we don't want to keep moving people around the country. We want them to stay put. And I have to say a huge thank you to our tourists because let's be frank, Easter weekend, really quiet. 169, was it, tickets that we issued? 160.
169.
You know, that is a minimal amount of that we've actually enforced. So, and they've been out on the streets all weekend, the police. So I think really good show that I think our second homeowners and our tourists have listened, and most of them have stayed at home.
Question for Councillor Andrew Barron from Torbay. What effect has COVID-19 had on drug supply and county lines?
Well, this is quite an interesting one. Obviously, it's sort of being a bit squeezed. So we're finding at the moment that actually it's been quite a good excuse for younger people who might be involved in it, because they can't leave the house. They've got a reason to not be able to do the things that they would normally do. So I think there's a protective factor around the fact that you have to stay at home. So that's one element that's really, I think, helpful. The second one is around the fact that we've got, if you've probably noticed, if anybody is going out shopping, they've probably noticed that those people that are normally hanging around on the streets aren't hanging around on the streets in the same way. So we've probably got an issue at the moment where we've got drug takers who are actually having to try different drugs to resolve their issues. So I know that they're starting to look to things like spice and other elements to try and sustain them through this difficult period, which isn't going to be a great thing either, because as we know, there's no treatment if you're a spice addict. And you don't know what you're getting when you get spice either. So I think there's a real, we'll have to just see how that goes over the coming weeks and months. We know that there may be a need for some drug treatment accessing in a much quicker way. And I know that pharmacies at the moment, they were able to actually dispense their methadone and still manage those people who are already on drug treatment programmes. That's still happening.
Okay, question from Mike Thompson. What are the specific dangers to children created by the coronavirus crisis, and how are the police addressing this?
Well, obviously, one of the things that's been discussed quite a lot in the media, and you've probably seen our office doing some campaigns on it, is around not all children are safe in the home. And we know that schools were being opened for key workers and for children who may have been looked after or needed to be in a school environment. And we've worked really closely with Operation Encompass to give a teacher helpline. And the reason for that is a lot of schools at the moment were working on skeleton staff. Often, I know my daughter, before they actually closed the school, was running with supply teachers who didn't know the children. So you've got teachers really who to have access to a helpline with psychologists and therapists to get advice about how to deal with a child is really welcome. So we got that set up. That literally got set up within 2 weeks of the crisis and is now available in all schools across Devon and Cornwall and the Isles of Scilly, and they can make that phone call between 8:30 in the morning and 10 and ring for help and advice and guidance from trained people. I think that's a really good thing, and we've also encouraged teachers, if they are getting a phone call from the normal Operation Encompass, which is where the police will ring the school in the morning before 9 o'clock to let them know if a child has been a victim or a witness of domestic incident the night before, they can actually make some decisions. If that child is somebody who isn't in school at the moment because they're not a child of a key worker or currently on a child protection plan or a vulnerable child, they could invite that child to school via their parents if they think that would be safer for that child. So there's some options here of what we're trying to do to help children be in safer environments if they need to be.
Okay, so question from Teresa Drew from Ermington Parish Council. What are police and the OPCT doing to ensure information is disseminated to as many people as possible, particularly those who don't have computer access?
Yeah, we've been sort of thinking about this, haven't we? Because obviously all of our team at the moment is working remotely, and there's a sort of a kind of an assumption that everyone else can work in that way and have access to the same things and technology that we do. Well, I think one of the first things, and I have to praise Torbay Weekly, which is a new launched newspaper in the Torbay area. They wanted to do a very special edition as their first newspaper, and obviously we supplied some funding towards that, and so did the council, and everyone got together to really help ensure that the right information was getting delivered to people's homes, so it wasn't just available online. And we're looking at working with other partners across the patch to do something similar. So I think in a way this is the potential resurrection of the print media. I think there's an opportunity here to do much more in that way. And the other thing that my office has been doing, we've just been given £45,000 we've given to Devon Community Foundation and Cornwall Community Foundation to enable charities and voluntary groups to bid into their main COVID emergency fund to actually buy technology and to buy some of the things that they need to help have those conversations remotely with those people who need it. So there's an opportunity to really sort of bolster the way that they're delivering services at the moment in a more technological way, and to help those clients who don't have access to it.
Okay, one from Councillor Ashley Wills from Columpton. Can we have an update on neighbourhood policing, please?
I suppose the only update is you've probably seen there's a lot more neighbourhood policing going on in your community if you've been out and about, going out and getting your essential supplies, because the proactive nature of what they've needed to do, especially over the Easter weekend, is that they've just been out and about, basically on the streets. And do you know, the feedback has been, we love being out on the streets, we love being engaging and talking to people. This is what the job's all about. And I think our challenge will be, how do we keep that sustained post-COVID? Because it is the right thing to be doing. We are the founding fathers of neighbourhood policing, and I think we've got a challenge of trying to keep it that way. So they've been very busy, and I hope people have noticed them out and about.
One from Philip Hackett from Torridge. Can you explain to us what is meant by a graduated withdrawal of service plan?
So all organisations will be looking at a graduated withdrawal of service plan, and that is if the sickness levels in each organisation get so high that they are unable to deliver the service in the way in which they currently do. What I will say, I'm going to do a fingers crossed here, we have one of the lowest sickness records as police forces in the country. Let's keep it that way. We won't even need to be looking at a graduated withdrawal of policing plans. So I think we're managing it really well down here. We're very lucky in the southwest. We have a low rate. We want to keep it out. Policing are really playing their part in helping us keep that out. And we're managing to keep ourselves safe and healthy at the moment. So let's keep it that way.
Okay. One from Mike Joyce from Newton Abbot. I understand there's been an increase in burglaries of closed shops and theft from closed construction sites throughout the area. What is being done about this?
Well, I suppose one of the things is I've been trying to look at the data to see what it's telling us since we've been into this crisis. And I had noticed that commercial burglary had sort of increased a little bit. A lot of crime, all crime overall, is going down. And it's going down at quite a rate as well. You know, there's been like 20% drops, 15% drops, another 20% drops. So it's going down. But commercial burglary had a little peak at the moment. And that happened in the first week. It started in a couple of towns. So there's been more proactive policing in the town centres. There's something about the need to really sort of support those businesses that have closed down. It goes back to my worry about the mental health of businesses. You know, if you lose your business, you lock it up and then it gets burgled and you get stuff stolen as well. You know, that ain't going to make you be feeling in a very good place. So we need to make sure that we're helping businesses protect themselves. I've got a proposal in that we're looking at the moment about what we could do more to help businesses. I've asked someone to see what we can do if there is a need. We've joined the South West Business Council's task force to be available to help businesses, but we're still trying to shape what that support needs to be. But policing are on it, what I can tell you, and I know in South Devon in particular, where Mike's from, they got a burglar only recently and he confessed to another 7. So that was one that really sort of getting somebody off the streets that's doing multiple crimes is where we need to be and need to continue to be.
Okay, and it was actually a burglar who was the first resident at the new custody centre, wasn't it?
There was, yeah. So when we opened Exeter Custody last week, time is flying. I really can't keep pace with dates. Monday, yeah. And the first person to be booked in that was arrested in Exeter was breaking into the cathedral, I believe. Right. Okay. So not even any old burglary. This is serious stuff. And he was the first one to be booked into the new custody suite.
Finally, last question from David Ambler from Liscard. What do the police expect at the end of the lockdown? Excessive partying, anger? Question mark.
I think I've already been invited to multiple parties. I'm not sure which one I'm going to go to yet. So I'm hedging my bets, really. I think everybody's going to want to party. They're going to want to party with their family. They're going to want to party with their friends. And they're going to want to party with strangers to just share in the moment. I suspect we might need a big national party. to go on. So I think something where we have some sort of controlled and safe way in which we can all go about our partying. Let's be frank though, I've met more people who are drinking more now that they're at home. Even I'm getting my delivery of beer and I'm popping home and having a pint, you know, so I'm sort of doing things that I wouldn't normally do. So we need to make sure that we keep people safe if they go out partying. Of course we want them to celebrate, but we are worried that it could get, you know, out of hand.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for joining us, whether you've been watching online or whether you've been listening to the podcast. If you've got a question for Alison, the details of how to get in touch are on our website, and you can feel free to do that, and we'll be making this a regular feature of our communications throughout this crisis.
Take care.